Walking through the city, lights all aglow. Everybody's got a story to show. Wheels keep spinning, streets overflow. Hustle never stops, we're in the flow. Skylines high like our dreams in the air. Concrete jungle, we got flair. Rhythm of the night, we don't care. Underneath the stars we breathe rare. In this urban jungle we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side.
Kia ora koutou everyone, and thank you for coming to It's in the Ballot. And we've got our two wonderful candidates today. And shout out to the audience.
Yeah, well done.
And shout out to you guys that are watching online. My name is Laura White, and would our two lovely candidates love to introduce themselves?
Sure. Kia ora, I'm Grace.
Try this one.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll take that off your hands.
Thanks. Kia ora. I'm Grace Pettit. Sally Dryland.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll start off with our opening statements. So maybe paper, scissors, rocks between you two ladies. Who gets to start? Oh, hey.
So, okay. Sally Dryland. I'm a local. I was born in Ekatahuna and travelled around the world. And then 20 years ago, Chris and I chose to make the mighty Tararua our home. Horizons oversees our region's natural resources, adverse events and public transport. And my platform is the 3 Ps. I'm proven, practical and proactive. I've proven my commitment to the Tararua. I'm known for my authentic representation and extensive knowledge and robust relationships. I'll hit the ground running from day one. As Tararua Federated Farmers President, I've led some hard discussions. And that brings me to number 2, the practical. Rules do need to make sense. Collaborative programs such as SLUI, the Sustainable Land Use Initiative, get things done when we work together. Last one, proactive. Relationships ensure I'm ready to go with councillor and staff on the bus. I will listen to you, ask the right questions and keep you informed.
Okay, and now we'll pass it over to our second candidate.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd just like to start by thanking Sam and Nick and in the Ballot team. And what an incredible day in the Tararua to be here. Thanks to everybody who came out. A bit about me. I have lived in the Tararua for, I think it's coming up 9 years now. I'm pretty privileged that I have lived throughout the Horizons region in my life. I grew up in the King Country, lived in Palmy while I went to uni and studied ag sci, and have moved to the Tararua, and we've been farming here since I think 2017. I am here today truly because my neighbour asked me to be. It's the same reason that I do a lot of things, the same reason I'm on East Coast Beef and Lamb Farmer Council, AMP Show Society, because people asked me to and I have said yes. But there's more important questions and things to say than yes and no. There's important questions like who does this impact, why does this matter, and what are the outcomes? And that's what I'm here to ask and talk about.
Give a round of applause to our candidates. Now we're going to get to the box questions, and I'm going to ask you both the same question. So we'll start with our first candidate. What political party are you linked to?
Oh, me? Sorry. So with Federated Farmers, we've always maintained a apolitical position, and that's how I view my life. You know, I'm happy to work with whoever is in government or whoever's in a regulatory space. The environment is actually too important to get wrong because of political ties.
And I'll ask the same question to you as well. Are you linked to any political parties?
Short answer, no. And yeah, basically to mirror what Sally has said, it's all about collaboration and the voice for people that need it and working together.
Excellent. So, Sally, heading back over to you, do you support political party endorsement of local government candidates?
No, and I'll go back to those 3 Ps. I see it as a practical thing that there shouldn't be outside.
And we're back. Okay. and to you too, the same question. Do you support political party endorsement of local government candidates?
Short answer, no. Again, I think it's important to be impartial, and particularly at the grassroots level, there is so much local IP that is so critical to making the correct decisions for the people locally. And yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, and now we'll pop down to question C. For you, Sally, should rural communities have a say in the operation of council-owned rural water schemes?
Again, that's 3 Ps, back to practical. Okay, yes, Akatio, Pongarai, Ekatahuna, Rongamai, Turamia, Markuri are firstly water services that are serviced by the locals, in many cases maintained by the locals. So yes, I support local communities having a say. There was an interesting study done within the Tararua through Scion Forest Flows workshops, and it was a 3-year project, and it showed that we all who tie into an integrated catchment need to work together to work out how we're going to use our resources. And I'm fully supportive of that. And I think the catchment groups are now providing that pathway.
Yep. And same question to you as well.
Again, yes, I believe the Tararua, it is predominantly rural communities, and there has been quite a history of challenges with water infrastructure in the Tararua, but it's about working together to preserve and maintain those resources and the infrastructure for the people who live here.
Okay, now we'll move to question D when Sam's finished moving his chair. Okay, now we'll move to question D, starting with you, Sally. Are you comfortable with the way the Regional Council manages its debt position?
Yeah, look, I think that the whole economics of things need to be kept in perspective. So in a proactive way, I've sorted out some information here. Look, Horizons has $1.4 billion worth of assets. It's got $50 million worth of debt, and I'd see that as proportionally a hell of a lot less than what we're carrying on farm. So I think we've got to keep that in perspective. We need to ensure that the flood banks, etc., and all the assets are maintained, and I'm strongly in favour of using our depreciation each year to support those works being carried out.
Excellent. And for you too, Grace, are you comfortable with the way how the Regional Council manages its debt position?
At this very moment in time, I wouldn't say I'm confident enough to give a really sound comment in either direction. It would be something that I would absolutely be working on to make sure that I'm thoroughly across if elected.
Mm-hmm. Okay, question E. Sally, starting with you. What is your position on the use of 1080 in the Horizons region for pest management?
Yeah, look, again, the practical side of things comes out. I'm supportive of 1080 away from the main access routes, and I'm in favour of pest management strategies other pest management strategies being used. The reality is we have to protect our existing wildlife, and sadly, trapping alone isn't enough. I think that having also planted poplar poles and had the possums strip them out overnight really showed me the value of having that possum control, and Horizons through the pest management program has been working really proactively to get the across the district controls in place, and we're showing good results. I think we've got something like 80% are now less than what's the concerning level for possums, as an example.
Same question for you, Grace. What is your position on the use of 1080 in the Horizons region for pest management?
Yeah, 1080 is one of those more controversial things, but I think it's a really critical tool in our toolbox. The threat of TB to our farming industry is really significant, and if we don't continue to manage the levels of the pests in our ngahere, we're not only risking our environment, but risking the economic viability of our farming businesses.
Okay, so over to you, Sally. Question F.
Do you want to do? Shall we swap order at some stage?
Oh, we can definitely swap order if you want to.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that Grace raised an interesting point there, though, that in Ruapehu there is an issue with TB, and with the neighbouring regional council, and I think we've got to be across that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so I'll start with Sally for question F. Forgive me, Grace. Jeez. Okay, question F. There has been much media coverage about candidates' behaviour towards their fellow candidates over the country. So, for example, Wellington. What are your personal values that make you a suitable candidate to be a councillor?
This might sound a little bit fluffy, but I would say my personal values are hope, growth, passion, and love. And I really think that a happy, growing community is a resilient one.
Same question to you, Sally.
Yeah, look, again, it's proven. I've got the connectedness to the community, and I think everyone knows my values in that respect. I'm transparent and forthright, and communities leaders that I've spoken to, when deciding to stand, have described that as being authentic. So that's the value that I'd like to bring to the table.
Excellent. Now, G for Grace. On to question G now. The Government and Taxpayers Union, this is going to be a fun one, I can tell, folks. The Government and Taxpayers Union have been accusing councils of being irresponsible with large percentage rate increases. What's your view?
To my knowledge, the Horizons region has one of the largest regional council areas to manage in the country. It's a really complex area with specialist needs, up from the Upper King Country area right down to Mount Bruce. So at the end of the day, we need to rely on our experts, and they need to be held to account.
And same question for you too, Sally?
Yeah, look, no one likes paying more rates, but the reality is sometimes costs go up. And one of the costs that we know as householders probably is the house insurance costs going up. And it's because of the risk of an adverse event. And so we've got to keep that in mind, because when you've got $1.4 billion worth of assets and your insurance goes up, that reflects into your rates. And so keep it in perspective. Do I think that there could be more collaboration between councils that would save a lot of money? Yes, I do. HR, comms, some of the regulatory scenarios. We do need to collaborate more to bring down some of the costs.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Grace, question H. Do you support the central government introducing rates caps onto local authorities, and why?
To be honest, no, I don't really feel it's the place of the central government to dictate that. It's so unique to that area, the needs of that area, and sure, they can advise and offer structure and solutions, but at the end of the day, it should be up to the people who are paying those rates in that area.
What do you think, Sally?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, look, it's a practical thing. It's no to the cap. Regional council is responsible for that adverse events response management. Look, I've sat on the Rural Coordination Group over in Horizons for many years with Jane Tyler from Rural Support Trust. There has to be flexibility to respond, to adjust the funding. I think we could do better with the transparency about how these funds will be used. The Integrated Catchment Management Plan presented last week to Council highlighted that ensuring there is a full and comprehensive schedule of assets should mean works become more proactive rather than reactive. And I think that's something that, again, we can really benefit from. It took time to get the extra weather monitoring stations out at the Puketoi range, etc. And I think we need to tighten up on listening to our community needs.
Okay, now we're up to question I. So this is a great one for anyone that's environmentally conscious. Grace, what are your views on the restoration of wetlands to their natural form in the Horizons region?
Ultimately, I see this as critical work. Preserving our unique flora and fauna and our ngahi is so precious to us, and it's work that should continue. But it's also something that takes a lot of time and really careful management, and does have the potential to blow out if we aren't keeping the whole scope of what needs to be done in context.
What about you, Sally? Do you like wetlands?
I do, and I've actually made quite a few wetlands at home and written about them in the local paper, because over time, like when you fence out your stock out of the waterways and things like that, there are other costs that come with that, and one of them is having a reticulated water supply, for example. So, look, wetlands are the kidneys. Palmerston North, Woodville and Paetua are formed where there used to be wetlands. So my question back to people who promote that we try and get back to nature is, are we prepared to sacrifice our towns and cities? Because I think there's a wider discussion to be had. I also wanted to raise this, that along the Manawatu River, as part of the Manawatu River Leaders Accord, we've worked really hard to tie people back to the river by the building of 8 whare along the way. And that highlights that those areas are of special significance. So when we're talking wetlands, let's make it where it's special rather than everywhere.
Okay, now here's a particular spicy one. Grace, I hope you like spice, but here we go. Question J. Spending needs to be within budget without increasing rate. According to the person who wrote the question, luxuries will you stop?
To be honest, I'm not sure if it's about a hard stop. It's about understanding the context and knowing really where the needs truly lie. It's about consulting with local people, and if I think about it in a Tararua context, it's making sure that we are preserving our topsoil and we are doing the flood management that we need, and all of our local infrastructure is looked after.
Excellent. And what about you, Sally? Do you like luxuries or do you want to stop them?
I wish I had a few luxuries, but no, yeah, look, you've got to be proactive here. And the signal changes to the RMA are good in that respect. I know the local TDC council are disappointed as it's holding up the district plan, but you can't afford to approve plans without the attached identification of the SNAs or the cultural sites of significance. So there's a wild pendulum swing. And, like in the 80s, we had all the stuff that you could do. It was all permitted. And then in the 2020s, we suddenly got told, no, you have to get permissions for everything. And I'd really like to see us bring that back together and find that middle ground through that collaborative process. And I'll tell you one prime example of that is the new road going through, and the amount of collaboration that went in to bringing those groups together to ensure that it wasn't a regulatory overburden.
Okay, and here's a fun question for all the political nerds out there that love political science. Question K. How do you plan to use, and this one's for you, Grace, how do you plan to use deliberative democracy to ensure residents can directly contribute to the challenges our communities face?
Thanks, Laura. I suppose for me, my current day job is actually in marketing, and effective deliberative democracy involves good communication flow. So I'm a millennial, and I'm fortunate that I've, I suppose, grown up with the internet, and I suppose understanding how to maximise that platform to engage the local community and get that feedback flow is really important to understand what is first and foremost for the people that live here.
And what do you think about that, Sally?
Yeah. Hey, look, again, it's a proven thing. Like, as the president of the Tararua Federated Farmers for the last 6 years, you had to bring people together to get a position, and that is deliberate democracy, deliberative democracy. It's bringing, like we've shown the 2040 film, for example, which looked at how to progress, our impact on the globe. And it's sort of like we brought all the activists together and all the farmers and all the businesses and sort of said, well, look, here's a pathway. Let's have a discussion and let's not be pointing the finger at each other.
Yes. And with that, we're going to go over to question L. And question L, again, is another spicy one, depending on where you stand on this issue. Starting off with you, Grace. Do you think that Māori wards, such as Horizon's own Raki Māori and Tonga Māori constituencies, strengthen democracy? Why or why not?
Yes, in a short answer, I believe they do. I feel the encouragement of participation in whakapapa Māori and everybody who identifies Māori in a classically colonial and Pākehā political system is really crucial. I feel like it is a beautiful modern day example of honouring our tiritia waitangi, and yes.
Excellent. And we'll hand it over to Sally. What do you think?
Again, it's a proven thing, yes. I totally support the seats. I didn't initially. I was very sceptical, but I think having worked in that Manawatu River Leaders Accord, where there's 34 different groups, including 5 different iwi now within the room, talking about issues associated with the river and the river quality and our way of life, I think that's a really key thing. And building it up through that relationship first, rather than through a regulatory, you have to do this sort of thing. You know, like I think, again, the new road proved you get people in the room, you find solutions together, and you get the James Kendricks of the world happening in that conversation, and things happen for the right reasons.
I'm quite interested to, if I may, with the host, ask a bit of a supplementary on that question. What made you change your mind on the Māori wards and constituencies?
Yeah, look, so initially my background is that I played in the first New Zealand Māori hockey team. And it wasn't about where you could whakapapa back to, it was about what was in here. You know, it was what you felt and how you interrelated with people. You know, like my grandfather was adopted into the family. Was he a Māori or was he not? You know, like, and it's sort of like, as soon as we start identifying people through that whakapapa line, we potentially aren't having an open conversation. You know, like, I don't want to see anyone excluded. So, again, that Manawatu River Leaders Accord, you've got the Jet Boat Club, you've got the environmental groups, and you've got iwi and councils, and the regulatory body all in the one room.
Kia ora, Sally. Now over to you, Grace. Question M. So, concerning the central government's messaging about councils being a core reason for the cost of living crisis due to wasteful spending, do you think this is the case? Why or why not?
That question's quite a broad one, and if we're talking about it specifically in a Horizons Regional Council, right at this minute, I can't say I know enough about the operation of HRC to confidently comment, but I can understand why urban residents might feel this way. The work of Horizons Regional Council is often not seen and understood by a lot of urban people, so yeah, I guess it's a big education piece, both for myself and for the wider community.
Okay. And Sally, what do you think about the central government's messaging about councils being a core reason for the cost of living crisis due to wasteful spending?
Yeah, well, again, it's back to that insurance thing, and this is where you've got to be proactive and you've got to find out, are we being transparent with the figures as to why the increases are happening? You know, like the Horizons has grown their staff by quite a considerable amount. And, you know, that's had an impact. Look, it certainly would be nice to have I think it is the 2.2% increase that Whanganui Council have had this year. I think Horizons is running at 18% average for the last 2 years, you know, over the 2 years. 11 and 7 or whatever. So, you know, we can't keep going with those rates increases, but we've got to protect what we have. So, yeah. Do people that are being protected by the stock banks around Palmerston North need to pay more? Who knows? We've got to make those hard decisions around the council table.
All right. Question N. Over to Grace again. What will you do to stop poor council expenditure, allocate resources to critical infrastructure, and rein in huge increases?
in this context, the word poor is quite subjective, I think. To define what poor expenditure looks like to the individual would vary in a big way, I think. I suppose if I put it in the Tararua context, it's about really understanding what our highest priority needs are and being the voice for the Tararua in that way as well. And from what I gather, the ranges have historically been a big barrier, not just in physical transport, but in getting our message across. So if elected, I'm definitely going to be front and centre talking about the issues for Tararua over the hill.
And for you too, Sally, what will you do to stop poor council expenditure and allocate resources to critical infrastructure and brand huge increases?
Yeah, look, again, this is the proven thing, and I think that you've got to acknowledge that you've got to get involved in things. So within the Tararua, there's a river schemes, and there's 50 banks of gravel at the moment that are causing concern. And so we've got to empower people to make those things. Like you brought that group together, and one of the things they were going to do was get a universal consent so that any gravel extraction that was needed to do had a set of basic rules. That hasn't gone through the Horizons regulatory process, and so it's holding things up. And, if we want, that's a really easy way to cut down costs, is to make sure that the consenting requirements aren't so onerous.
All right, and now we'll head off to question O. For you, Grace, issues around climate change are becoming important. What are your thoughts on supporting anaerobic digestion of food waste to produce biogas similar to the plant in Riparua? Please note, this is not an incineration of general waste, so we're not setting it on fire.
To be honest, any additional methods that we can develop to help manage our waste are great, in my opinion. If the development and implementation is well planned and it makes financial sense within the context of other current issues, then absolutely green light, go for it.
Sally, what do you think about biogas?
Yeah, look, methane is formed when you have green waste in your rubbish. So we've got to get that out. We don't want that biomass within our landfills and things like that. So where can it go? Look, where's the business case? And why hasn't it been presented? And I actually don't know if this would be a Horizons Regional Council responsibility, or if it should be in the Tararua District Council's responsibility. And I think that even possibly, I know there was talk at one stage of iwi involvement, and I'm not sure if it was just for the waste out at outside of Dannevirke, or if it included the green waste from houses and that. So, it's got to be developed more, discussed more.
Question P for Grace. What skills do you possess that would enable you to effectively collaborate with central government on regional planning projects?
Sure. Well, I do have a Bachelor of Agri-Science and I've lived in the regions my whole life. Critical thinking and first-hand experience are of great value in these instances, and I think that there is a great amount of value to be had when you're actually in the mix, and you learn as you go and you understand the personalities, and I guess taking your purpose with you on that journey as well, and understanding that it is your function to be the voice for your district.
Yep. And same question for Sally. What skills do you possess that would enable you to effectively collaborate with the central government on regional planning projects?
Yeah, look, I've proven my ability to engage in this space. I think that one of the things that I'd like to highlight is last year there was a bus tour around the Tararua district, and with the councillors and staff on it, and I was an invited guest, and and I took that as recognition that I could add something to the conversation. You know, like we visited the Ekirahuna wetland development for wastewater. We went out and saw Slui farms and how the plans are playing out. You know, like we've got huge uptake to get that erosion under control, with more than 70% of our farmers taking actions. You know, we went to the Dannevirke water supply and had the discussions about the leaky dam and the impacts of that. And I think it's really important that you take that knowledge over there. Don't expect to learn on the job, because it's going to be too important to get right. We've got to make sure that Tararua is front and centre right from the beginning.
Just in time. Okay, now we'll go over to question Q, starting with Grace. What budget line item would you remove to help bring rates down in the Horizons region without disrupting basic services?
Thanks, Laura. I think that also for the last third, Sally might have to take the lead as well. We'll keep it even.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right, we'll defer it to Sally.
I'm happy to answer this now, but maybe from the next one.
Yeah.
Look, to be totally upfront, I haven't gone through line by line. It's a matter of context, and it's a matter of understanding the priorities for Tararua.
Okay. And what about you, Sally? What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think it's more a mindset change, and that this is where the practicality of why I'm standing is that we need to become more efficient in shortening the permission steps. You know, like at the moment, this Horizons can't meet their own consent conditions for some of the things. And so we need to get that practicality back into the system where it's attainable.
Okay, now we'll jump over to question R. starting with you, Grace.
Sally. No, you're back to me, is it?
I'm back to you. I'm back to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're mixing it up on you really challenging.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Okay, over to you, Sally.
Yeah.
What role should regional councils play in developing and implementing effective flood protection measures?
Proven again. This is huge. This is a core function of regional council. You can't palm this one off onto someone else. It has to be the regional council that takes the lead in flood management.
All right, and same question for you, Grace. What role should regional councils play in developing and implementing effective flood protection measures?
It's a critical part of council work and should be continued.
Excellent. Short answers. I love that. Okay, so question S. S for Sally. There we go. Look at that.
Anyway, that was good timing, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
good timing, yeah. Okay. How can regional councils improve collaboration with local authorities and central government to strengthen civil defence systems and ensure a more resilient regional response to emergencies?
Yeah, look, again, I'll go back. This is a proven one. So, like, I've been involved with recovery and response phases for droughts, floods, COVID, cyclones. You know, like just keep in mind is that the Tararua Federated Farmers Presidency role is a voluntary role. So we give of our time to make sure that the responses and recovery match what's needed for people out there. But also a big part of that role is to communicate to government agencies, MPI, MFE, all those sorts of people about what's happening and what support they could offer. So, yeah, like the new weather stations being put in is something in the Puketoi catchment that I'm extremely pleased to see.
What do you reckon, Grace?
Sorry, can you remind me which question we were?
Oh, yeah, we're up to question S.
Thank you, sorry. So communication during civil defence situation is critical, and ensuring that all bodies understand their roles and their opportunities to work together have to be maximised. And it's a little bit to Sally's earlier point of not doubling up, being as efficient as possible, and just making sure that it's as streamlined as it can be so that we can mobilise when we need it.
Excellent. Okay, and back over to Sally. What do you see as the main difference between Māori landowners and Hapu in terms of their relationship with Horizons Regional Council?
Yeah, look, this is a really tricky one, and I am actually with Michael McCartney the other day and before I saw the questions, but this came up as an issue in that it's very hard often to identify which iwi or which hapu is connected with a resource consent, say. And so what had happened in one case is an iwi had signed off, which is like your larger family grouping, but then your hapu is the individual family grouping. And one of the hapu affected weren't happy that the consent had been granted. So it's in the courts, and the courts, when we go to the courts, no one wins. Because there's a lot of resource tied up in that, both money, time, and energy. So I think it would be really helpful if, as part of the RMA reform, that there was more acknowledgement of what iwi relates to what region.
What about you, Grace? What do you think about this issue? What do you see as the main difference between Māori landowners and hapu in terms of their relationship with Horizons Regional Council?
I guess for this one, it's really important to remember that there is significant generational knowledge that exists and is held by hapu, which are actually critical to understand in planning processes and the decisions of the council. As Sally said, it can get complex when there's multiple parties involved, but I think that can only improve. The more we do it, the better and easier it will get.
Oh, Homai, did I just call you Sally by mistake?
No.
Okay, all right.
That's okay.
Getting people's names mixed up.
Maybe in a few years.
We'll let you off this time.
Let me off this time. Okay, all right. So question you, starting with you, Sally. Oh, I like how that flows. With a largely rural area covered by the council, but some local success stories in terms of industrial growth in areas like Fielding, how can the regional council best support economic growth across industries and sectors?
Yeah, look, again, this is a proven thing. Look, I was involved initially in attending Accelerate 25 and 35 meetings. It's a great example of how you can nurture emerging talents, projects that benefit us all. It used to be reported across the whole region, and I'm not sure if it still is, and whether that's that Tararua became inactive in that space, or whether it's that people didn't want to travel over the hill while the road was being repaired. You know, like, I'm not sure, but it's really important that we get in front of these things.
And same question for you, Grace. Question you. With a largely rural area covered by the council, but some local success stories in terms of industrial growth in areas like Fielding, how can the regional council best support economic growth across industries and sectors?
Well, this is a bit of a multi-pronged one, in my opinion. We have to ensure that this is not at the detriment of any natural resources. We have to make sure that it is in keeping with the areas of cultural significance, and we have to ensure that we are making it easy for people. So if you are someone that is wanting to build something, or you're wanting to create something, facilitating those processes to make them less complex go a big way in ensuring that that it's possible, removing the roadblocks.
Hey, Sally, I've got a question for you. That's question V. If you're elected as councillor, will you decelerate council spending on unwanted grand projects and concentrate on vital necessary infrastructure needs such as roading?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Roading really isn't our kettle. That's the District Council and NZTA. So as much as I'd like to have an influence on some of those things, like, you've got to pass the buck. But I do think that on the grand projects thing, is that at the moment Horizons are working through, shall we build a big building to house our staff in one place? And there's some real red flags in that we haven't seen the full business case for it yet. Possibly at the moment staff are split over 3 sites, but to bring them all under the one roof and to spend 33 million on a building at this stage is probably a little bit of a grand project. And as I say, we need to know, are regional councils going to still be there in the future? And do we take on the debt to do that sort of building.
Good timing. Same question for you, Grace. If you're elected as a councillor, will you decelerate council spending on unwanted grand projects and concentrate on vital necessary infrastructure needs such as roading?
Yeah, well, as Sally says, the roading side of things is not as relevant, but from my experience, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind closed doors in a council setting that the general public don't seem to understand the full scope. It's sort of a tip of the iceberg situation. And so until I'm in the mix and until I can see the entire context of something, I wouldn't yet comment to say that I'm going to rip in there and you know, flip the tables over and tell them.
Oh, I like ripping in there and flipping the tables over. That's the fun part.
So watch the space with a bit more understanding about priorities and a long-term plan as well is also very critical.
Who else wants to see Grace go full Rambo?
Believe me, you don't.
Now, we've got question W. So enough of you, Sally. Why do you think that you're right for a role as councillor?
Look, I think that actually the last question probably highlights this, is that I've been in those discussions, I've been submitting, I've been doing all the reading prior, you know, like, so when we say that we should be ready for involvement at the council before we take on that role. Look, I'm very thankful. I've gone out and I've tightened up my governance skills with recent courses. I've got the relationships and I've got the knowledge for the Tararua. And, you know, look, the other thing is that having been a principal for many years, I used to go into schools as an emergency staffer and you had to be on your game. You couldn't pass the buck to someone else. And I think that that's going to be really important, is when we go in there, we hit the ground running and work to get more collaboration, but make things happen.
So you're used to dealing with millennials.
Oh, millennials are easy.
And Gen Z.
Yeah, I think my mother's the problem at the moment, actually.
Okay. Same question for you, Grace. Why do you think you're right for a role as councillor?
I just have a natural knack for empathy and understanding the needs of others and communicating those needs as well. Ensuring that people from all walks of life are seen and heard, and the outcomes that are developed match those needs.
Excellent. Nice short answer. Okay, guys, last page of questions. We're getting through them.
Yeah, you're doing well.
Okay, question X, starting off with Sally. What governance mechanisms are in place to ensure that spill management at the Maowhango Dam comply with regulatory requirements, safety standards and environmental obligations? And how are these mechanisms being monitored and enforced?
Yeah, look, this again was a really interesting one, and one that I had with the CEO of Horizons the other day. It came up because it's not a dam that many people talk about, but what happens is during the year it has releases at certain times and they are well publicised. But what happened on one particular case is that they released without the wider notice, and so it was only thanks to a cop in Hunterville on his day off hearing that they were going to release this dam, and he whipped down to the campground and got people out of what would become a flood zone. So, you know, like those sorts of things, again, we learn from them, but we learn most if we share the story. And yeah, a good learning. It's not a dam that I've visited, but I would like to.
All right. Looks like a holiday is on the cards. Yeah. What about you, Grace? Maowhango Dam? There we go. That's the problem when you go from Te Reo to English. You end up saying dam instead of dam. Same question to you.
I feel you and I understand. Yeah, look, I'm up for a trip to Ouru too, I think, to see this in the flesh. If elected, I would work to collaborate with the experts to best understand the needs and measures, and really make sure that the people of the local area who will be most affected are heard and their needs are met.
All right. Question Y. Starting with you, Sally. Given the benefits of a more connected regional transport network, how can governance structures support the integration of passenger rail services between Horizons and Greater Wellington Regional Councils? And what steps are needed to ensure equitable funding, accountability, and service delivery across both regions?
Yeah, again, that practical thing that we've got to get into the discussions. They've already been taking place with the Capital Connection Transport program. The proposal also incorporates building new, almost like dormitory towns in areas near Otaki and a few others. So, yeah, my thing is with the Tararua, is that we need to connect in with the bus service, but we need to protect our St John health shuttles, etc., that currently get funding from the Horizons Council. So just be wary. We don't want to lose that. You know, like when we got the health shuttles, attendance at appointments for medical things over in Palmerston North went up 43%. And so it was of benefit to our region.
Same question for you, Grace. I can read it out again if you want. But
I'm up with the player.
Yeah,
Fine. We're good.
Yeah. Okay. Question Y for you.
Sure. Yeah, so that thorough and sufficient consultation is so critical here. Really understanding the needs and the usage volumes is going to be really important. I'm expecting there to be a discrepancy between representation from those at GW versus, Tararua, who might primarily be using this function, but, it could be the unlocking of the Tararua, as we have already seen with the new road. Woodville is like I've never seen before. So it could really be the next chapter for Woodville. I understand that previously was 150 people employed at the Woodville railway station, and how incredible would it be to have that economic growth back?
Okay, and now we're going to head off to question Z. And don't worry, guys, this is a fun one. This is actually a fun one to answer. Starting with you, Sally. What's one big opportunity or challenge you see for the region?
Okay, again, in the RMA reforms at the moment, it's proposed that point source discharges are kept at their current levels. And this raises huge concerns for farmers within the Tararua region, because it means that Dannevirke can keep pumping whatever they're pumping into the river at the moment, or Ikitahuna. All those levels they can retain because they have that single point source of discharge, whereas as a farmer we don't. So the only way we're going to get better river outcomes is for the likes of farmers to be pegged back on what activities they can do. So from my concern is with that those discharge allowances within the proposed new RMA reform. So I think we're going to have to be in front of that right from the start. I know that people are talking to ministers already.
That's good. We don't want poop in the water.
No.
Okay. Same question for you, Grace. What's one big opportunity or challenge you see for the region?
I have written down about management of erosion in waterways, and sort of touched on a little bit what Sally's already said, but on the spot, I feel like I want to change that to opportunities for our region. We have such incredible natural assets here, and if we could continue to claw back some of the traction that we had from tourism prior to COVID, and really maximise I don't want to use the word exploiting, but, showing off our incredible natural assets and continuing to preserve those and be really proud of those, then I think that we'd be onto something really good.
Excellent.
Can I use my button card there? No.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, because I think that the Te Apari Park is a prime example of what Grace is talking about there. Like the ability to not cash in on it, but to reconnect people with that tonga that we have in the region. And, Pukaha, it's had its problems, but it's coming through that now, and, a fantastic facility.
Yeah, and interesting you ended on pukaha because that actually flows in quite nicely to the next question. Question AA. For you, Sally, or are we starting with Grace? Which one? Who wants?
I can, I don't mind.
Okay, all right, we'll start with Grace.
Hang on.
We're going to be professional papers as rock players about this.
All right, Grace.
Sorry, did you finish the question? I'm not sure.
No, I haven't even started. Okay, question AA. Would you support a predator-free campaign in your constituency similar to predator-free Wellington?
Short answer, yes. But it's one of those things that what's on the top of the list for Tararua? Is this on top of the list for Tararua? I'm not certain, but the romantic in me says I would love to see this, and the more preservation of our local native treasures, the better.
Is this a nice to have, or is this a core function?
At this moment in time, maybe it's a nice to have, but maybe it is a part of a long-term vision.
Alrighty. Same question for you too, Sally. Would you support a predator-free campaign in your constituency similar to predator-free Wellington?
Yeah, so there's almost a lack of knowledge there of what's happening already. So Ruahine Kiwi have been working really hard to get the pests out of the Ruahine range, and that was part of the Jobs for Nature, which the funding is finished for now, but there's still a big voluntary group that are doing a lot of the trapping and things like that. And I think that's where we've got to be careful. Money won't fix things, but having people on the ground will. And we've got to get back to that collaboration, get back to valuing our volunteers and give them roles, like explain what needs to be done and how we can work together to do it. So is the north side of the gorge a potential boundary, and how far can we go to get a place that's safe for Kiwi to roam again?
Alrighty. And last question before we go into hard-hitting questions. Question AB, starting with Grace. What's your biggest priority for the next term, and how do you intend on delivering that?
My biggest priority is just ensuring that Tararua has a voice. As I've already alluded to, I think it's easy for us to be a bit forgotten about. I'm pretty sure that, we don't even show up on some maps. So, let's make sure that we're on the map. Let's make sure that we're heard. Let's make sure that our issues are talked about and on the agenda.
All right. Same question for you, Sally. What's your biggest priority for the next term, and how do you intend on delivering it?
Yeah, look, I think that comms thing is really important, and it's something that I've worked really hard for and done with the Tararua Federated Farmers role. I've made sure that people understand the discussions that we're going through, whether it be GE, GMO, like Hewan. None of that was easy, but we had the conversation. We brought those people into the room. So my thing is, get people collaborating, get them in the room together, and let's solve what needs solving.
All right. Thank you very much. And I believe we're up to the hard-hitting questions now.
Hard-hitting questions, we don't get any money. What does a question? Because every candidate has an answer. The hard-hitting questions.
key thing for people. So let's not lose that. And, you know, like I have to say in the past that I was actually the chair of St John prior to it. So that's why it's so, I'm so passionate about that. Don't throw out one thing to enable something else to happen. The other thing is that, you know, with the rail transport, I actually go down to Masterton and catch the train from there down to Wellington. You know, like, is it going to be more advantageous to go through Palmerston North? I'm not so sure.
Alrighty, last question, I promise. Hard-hitting question 3, starting with Grace. What is your position on retaining the Tamaki Nui Aroa Māori ward for the Tararua District Council and the Tonga Māori constituency for Horizons Regional Council? And why do you hold that position?
Yeah, well, I did sort of allude to that in the earlier question along the same vein. You know, inclusion of Māori in this, what is effectively a Pākehā concept in the current government form, it just has to be done. As I say, it's about honouring Te Tiriti and honouring the people that live here.
Excellent. Okay. Same question for you too, Sally.
Yeah, look, let's not weaponise where we come from. Let's make sure that we are inclusive to everyone. You know, like there's a lot of people from the Tararua that won't identify as Māori or European. You know, like I find it very hard to work out what I identify as, but I will say I identify very strongly when I'm travelling as a New Zealander. And wouldn't it be nice if we all could say we're New Zealanders?
All right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please hand it to our 2 candidates. They did a fantastic job answering the questions, didn't they? Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you so much, Sally. And with that, I would like to hand it over to... which one of you would like to start off with their closing statement?
Oh, sure. I haven't really prepared much of a closing statement.
That's all right.
Other than I just want to really, really thank you all. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you so much to Sally. You're so grateful to know you as a person. And yeah, no matter the outcome, I'm sure that we can still be neighbours. But yeah, well done to the in the Ballot team. It's such a great resource for people to make an informed decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, Grace. And now over to you, Sally, your closing statement.
Yeah, look, I think the thing is that I know the Tararua. I've represented the whole of the Tararua, you know, like, yes, I'm born in Ekirahona, but I still have very strong connections there. You know, I could say that I play golf with a lot of geriatrics, but I'm probably safer to say that I play with a lot of people from across the region and across the wider Horizons region, you know, like, so I've got those connections. I went to school over in Martin, you know, like I taught up at Ngā which is way up the top of the Waitotara Valley. So I've taught at Kumara, I've taught at Papatawa. So, you know, like I've been around the district, I know the issues, and I'm confident that I'm connected enough that if there is an adverse event that, you know, I can connect people together with the resources that we've got over in the central station. So, yeah, look, I want this role. I've worked very hard to make sure that I've got the skills for this role and those relationships. So thank you, and vote Sally.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, you two. And thank you to the audience at home and the audience here.